I believe inflation it's unavoidable, right?
Yes.
But what is a healthy inflation rate for our economy to sustain, and how do we manage the rate of inflation?
So that's what the Bank of Jamaica does when it has an inflation target of 4 to 6%. So 9 years ago, in 2017, the Bank of Jamaica implemented what's called an inflation targeting regime. What they do is that they try to ensure that the level of money that is in the economy, chasing the amount of goods and services in the economy, are sufficiently aligned that inflation now falls within the range of 4 to 6%. So we don't want it to be lower than that, because that might indicate that there are some underlying problems with growth. The economic growth could be so slow that inflation is not rising quickly enough, right? But we don't want it to be too high either, above 4 to 6%, because that would now mean that prices become unstable. If prices are going up by 10% every single year, that's now difficult for both producers and consumers to sustain. Since inflation targeting, we have found that as measured monthly, 4 to 6% has been achieved, say 70% of the time. Right, so prices have fallen within that range 70% of the time over the last 9 years. But before that inflation targeting regime was implemented, we found that prices now were above that 6% 70% of the time. So there has been a sort of inversion of how prices have moved in Jamaica. It used to be that prices used to be above, or I should say the inflation rate used to be above 6% 70% of the time. Now it is below that 6% just 30% of the time. Being heavily import dependent also affects us in very significant ways, because most of our inflation is imported in both food and fuel. So a good amount of our inflation that we experience is because of imported fuel. We must import all of the fuel that we use. So we import a significant amount of food as well. So that also needs to be managed in a way that it gets us to the rate of 4 to 6%.